What if you could find brand new worlds right here on Earth, where anything is possible? Same planet, different dimension. I found the gateway.
The Reatch podcast presents the Sliders Rewatch, dedicated to the series Sliders on Fox and Sci-Fi Channel. Join us each week as we continue crossing the Einstein-Rosen-Podolsky Bridge and find ourselves in strange new worlds. Email your thoughts on each episode to the rewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast or on Twitter @rewatchpod.
And welcome back to the Reatch podcast and our Sliders Rewatch. I'm Cory.
And I'm Colin's hair. I will never change. I'll always be the same length. I'm always going to be around, no matter what.
Always under a hat.
Always under a hat.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us, everybody. This week we're discussing 2 more episodes of Sliders, believe it or not.
We are? That's what we're... Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I guess. All right, let's do it then.
So there's 2 episodes this week, World Killer and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? But before we get into it, we have a little bit of by the way.
By the way.
Yes, we got an email from Nikki again, which was awesome.
Hello, Nikki.
Hey, Nikki. You know, I'll read out the rest of her email when we get to the messages from Earth Prime segment, but there's a little section here that she put in, and she actually talks about something that we kind of speculated on, but completely missed the point of. I even grabbed the sound bite for the clip.
Oh, good.
Of this, okay. And still didn't get this bit of information, so I kind of feel a bit foolish. But she wrote this in regards to Common Ground. She wrote, it's a good thing they didn't put the tracker in the timer because the original timer was lost after Egyptian World. Putting in a person now makes more sense. Also, there was no new tracker installed. The message to Chromanus specifically referenced putting the device in Quinn on Earth 113. Earth 113 was the interrogation site from the episode Invasion. And she's exactly right. While Chromanus is there, FaceTiming with Chromag Command, that commander guy specifically says that the tracker was put in Quinn on Earth 113.
Yeah, I kind of remember that now. I didn't. Yeah, when we were talking about it, I didn't think about that. But yep, she's got it.
Yeah, so it is just a coincidence that the Chromags invaded Earth Prime 3 months after Remy and Wade got back there.
Which sucks, because it shouldn't be a coincidence. But that's fine. We'll go with what they did.
Yeah, so they are continuing to track Quinn with the tracker that he's had in him the whole time. There it is. Don't have to be happy about it, but them's the breaks.
Exactly.
All right. Well, getting into our first episode discussion this week. The episode is World Killer, written by Mark Scott Zickery, directed by Reza Badia. This originally aired on June 29th of 1998.
Oh my God, who are you? Where have you been? How did you survive?
It's Quinn.
We just got here. You stay back. I'm alone. We're as real as you are. We're just not from here. I don't understand.
Look, friend, we'll tell you the whole 9 yards, but first, where in the devil is everybody?
I built a machine in my basement, an anti-gravitational device, or that's what I thought it was. But when I threw the switch, it wiped every human being off the face of the earth.
Our trio slides into a world where the only inhabitant is a double of Quinn who turns out to be more accomplished as far as academic achievements go, but less accomplished when it comes to caring and understanding. Careless Quinn created sliding as Quinn Prime did, but failed to test it properly and unleashed a slidewave that slid every inhabitant on Earth, except himself, to a parallel world. Haunted by this disaster, Careless Quinn destroyed his machine and ended up a nomad wandering the world. Our trio manages to fix his machine and slide to the world Careless Quinn's people went to, only to find a world that has its resources pushed to the max, trying to sustain a population that suddenly doubled 3 years ago. After Careless Quinn accidentally breaks the new sliding machine, attempting to prove they came from a different dimension, Quinn Prime comes up with a plan to fix it, which ultimately gets them captured by the local crime boss, who before the mass slide was merely a greeting card writer. When the boss orders Quinn Prime shot, Careless Quinn finds his inner hero, and our group manages to escape the boss's clutches and activate the sliding machine, sliding everyone back to their original dimension.
The wrath of the great unwashed. And you wonder why I feel superior? You set something on fire, they put it out. Yes, I wonder how that makes you superior. Whatever you say, pal. We're not like them. I'll give you this. You may have a losing personality, but it really is an amazing design. This is just for starters. I got lots.
Hey, Q-Ball, I'm scanning these folk, but I can't make heads or tails of these numbers.
Just jot them down. Unless we can zero in their trace signature, we won't be able to ship these people back. Of course, that's assuming we ever get this running. We needed a visual aid. I turned it on. We had to show them something. Yes, but not that. You have to stand so close, Sister Rambo?
Word's gotten out about you. They all know you did this to them. So maybe you better be grateful for a bodyguard.
So we have a little bit of trivia here.
Yeah, originally, what they wanted to do was have a cardboard cutout that Remy would see when they landed on this world, where his double was kind of like a Pavarotti type performer, so very famous again, just like back in the King is Back. Right. So they cut it for time. This wasn't enough time to get it all in there. And then this was interesting. Remy looks at one of the nuns at one point, and he asks her about these stones that she's wearing around her neck on a necklace. And the nun says, "That's how our Lord dies, crushed under stones." So a little bit of alternate history there, whereas, on Earth Prime, if you're a follower of the Bible, he, of course, was crucified. But here in this other parallel world, he was crushed under stones. So I thought it was kind of cool. I wish they had kept that in there.
Yeah, definitely. Since the nuns played like a strong part in the episode, it would have been nice to sort of just have a little something extra for them.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have our brand new segment here, Quick Impressions. Okay, so what we're doing here, because we were talking about how some episodes this season don't have trivia or something like that, so we wanted to have something to fill it, but even though we have some trivia this week, we're kind of just going to throw it in anyway, because we think it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yes.
Now, pretty much what we're doing here is that I think we both agree that I do a pretty good Remy impersonation, and Tom, you do a pretty good Turo impersonation. And we also agree that I do a pretty good Christopher Walken, and you do a pretty good Sean Connery.
This is all in our own heads, so
yeah. So, from the episode, we've gone ahead and transcribed a little bit of dialogue from a scene, and we're just going to switch up the characters with these character impersonations that we can do.
Yes.
And hilarity shall ensue. So, we've got the lines here. We've got a little bit of scene direction. Do you want to take the scene direction, or do you want me to cover
yeah, I can do
one?
it. That's fine. Almost like my synopsis. Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so let's go for it and see how we go here.
The Professor, Sean Connery, and Christopher Walken exit the vortex. Well, it's San Francisco. 400-mile radius, and we don't go 4 feet.
Welcome to the same old.
Not exactly. The town is deserted. I guess the convention's not in town.
Then it won't be hard getting a room.
Okay, I got it. No bodies. Looks like everyone just took a powder. Well, whatever the story is, we're here for a week. Okay. The three start looking around.
Hey, Hello? Anybody?
That's good. Okay. Looks like we missed it by a couple of years.
Do you think, maybe, Cro-Mags?
No blast marks, no rubble. They're generally a lot show. No blast marks, no rubble. They're generally a lot showier.
Hey!
I've heard of biowarfare experiments.
So, what are you saying? Everything is dead?
Two ferocious wolves appear from a nearby alley. Not everything.
And scene.
That was good.
That was pretty good.
It's hard to switch between the two voices on the fly like that. I've never actually messed around with that before.
But, I'd like to throw out there, if anybody would like us to recreate a scene from the episode, if there's a particular part that you think would work for our quick impressions, feel free to transcribe it out, email it over. We'd love to get that for feedback as well.
Yeah.
You could stay here, you know. I got a room you could rent. Or we could share one.
Thanks, but
No. He's a good guy.
yeah.
All right, next stop, family reunion.
God knows what.
My father once said, we can be the captain of our ship, but not of the sea.
What does that mean?
That we have to accept what the world hands us, and ourselves.
Okay, so getting into our discussion of World Killer. We start off the episode with a bit of old history in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this because they're coming out of the movies and, Remy's excited to have some popcorn and see a movie. And the billboard reads, "The Man Who Would Be King." Now, this movie, the actual movie, stars Sean Connery and Michael Caine.
We should have done a Michael Caine impression, and then it would have been so related to... All right, anyway, go ahead.
It could have been, yes. But in this world, the billboard reads that it stars Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart. Yeah, a cool little bit of old history there, and I love that they sort of talk about how in the hell did Humphrey Bogart become a star, because he's like a very short man who's not very good looking.
That is true. Now, when I looked at, I read about this as well, that the inside joke there, I think I found this on earthprime.com, the director of The Man Who Would Be King, I think it was John Huston or Houston, something like that. I forget his actual name, but his dream cast was going to be Clark Gable and Humphrey Bogart. He wanted to make that movie with the two of them, but for whatever reason, the production company or the whoever was in charge, the studio wouldn't let him, and so that's why he ended up going with Sean Connery and Michael Caine instead. So this is kind of like a realization of the director's original dream cast.
Well, in actual fact, because I looked it up,
Mm-hmm.
Humphrey Bogart was actually already dead by the time they were making this movie. So that's why they couldn't get
maybe
him
that's
in
why. That makes it hard to make a movie with someone when they're dead. I'm just saying.
But, they go to a nice, quiet space down an alley to slide out and slide back in the exact same location on the next world.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a cool little visual. Sliding out, coming straight back into the exact same place. But as they walk around, the street has been decimated pretty much. Well, as we're going to find out, it's not really decimated. It's more that it's just been unkept. The world is just deserted. And, they talk about, maybe Cro-Mags invaded, but there's no explosions. Nothing's really falling apart. It is all...
Right.
It's as if the people just disappeared. And they head over to... they get attacked by wolves or dogs.
Right.
Maybe both.
They were pretty vicious looking, too.
Yeah. But they head to Quinn's house, and this is Definitely not Quinn's house, or New Quinn's house.
Right.
We've seen it before, because his place, it used to just be in a nice little suburb.
Yeah.
Neighbors and stuff. This new house appears to be like up on a hill or something. No neighbors, just a completely different house.
Right. It's happened a couple times. They've sort of switched it a little bit. The exterior and the interior has changed from time to time.
And we also get another little bit of odd history for this world, in that in this world, Quinn's mother died instead of his father, so he was raised by his father.
Right. I thought that was this is kind of neat because, his father, I guess here was a scientist or something as well, and there's all these awards that his father got and everything. And when he tells Maggie the story about the stardust, it was like a different play on what he told younger Quinn back, in the Guardian episode. Because in this time, it's not about how we're all part of something bigger, how we're all made of the same star stuff. In this one, it's like, you're only here for a certain amount of time. You got to make your mark, do something with your life and make it known. So this Quinn is much more motivated by getting acknowledgement for what he's done rather than just, doing science to spread knowledge and stuff like that. So it's definitely a different character.
Exactly. I think that's the really good thing about this episode, is that you've got a double who is very, very different to the Quinn that we all know.
Mm-hmm.
In that, he's the same. He's very smart, just like Quinn. He invented a sliding device, but really he is. His motivations are different, and he seems to not quite have enough remorse for what he's done, because what he did was the exact opposite of what Quinn did. He created this so-called anti-gravity device that he thought he was building, but instead of testing it on a small scale with himself, albeit that our Quinn inadvertently took people with him, this Quinn transported the entire world, leaving only him present. I think it's a cool, subversion of the Slider story. It does make me think, why was it just people who were transported?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too.
Was the vortex just, set to take people or something? Not unlike that, Cro-Mag weapon that we saw a couple episodes back.
Right.
It was, focused on people, so it didn't take any animals. I don't know.
Yeah, I was wondering that too, why? Because when the dogs attacked, I was like, oh, it's okay. But then when they said that everyone had been, slid out, I was like, well, what about the dogs? The dogs are still here, so they're still animals.
Yeah, and they come up with this cool thing instead of a vortex, because that's what you'd think. It was just like a giant vortex, suck the whole planet into it or something. No, it sent out a slide wave that pulsed out and surrounded the whole world, just taking all the people with it. So, even though we don't really get to see that, we get to see it kind of towards the end when they take everybody back. But I think it's a cool idea, it's a cool visual to send in your head. He's at the epicenter of this wave that gets sent out, so everybody except for him gets taken. I liked it. I thought it was a cool idea.
Yeah, I did too. Now the idea for the Slidewave came from the writer Mark Scott Zickery. We got some information on him from iReactions over on the sliders.tv forum, because like we said, we don't have a lot of deleted scenes or trivia stuff, so he gave us a little bit for behind the scenes here. And apparently Mark Scott Zickery was a friend of Tracy Torme, and he got hired. I mean, he was doing other sci-fi stories and writing for TV and movies and things like that. So he has the credentials. When he came on to Sliders, he basically got hired because when he went in to meet with David Peckinpah, he just repeated everything that Peckinpah had to say about TV and production and scripts, but he changed the words around. So he's basically spitting back to David Peckinpah everything that Peckinpah had said, about his work in TV. So of course Peckinpah's like, oh, let's get you in here. You're awesome, man. I love you. So they hired him on for season 4. So that's where he came into the whole show. And this is one of his ideas to do this Slidewave. He was more into the sliding technology, instead of being more about the things you could do with sliders and the worlds and stuff like that. He was really interested in the whole idea of what else could be done with this sliding technology. How could you apply sliding to different applications, different worlds and things like that. So that's where this came from.
Good call. Because it also ties in to what they've been setting up, is that Quinn has been unable to input the coordinates into the timer for his brother's home world. So this gives him a chance to meet somebody who has been working on sliding technology, help them out, and then use their base, sliding tech to figure out how to rejigger their timer. And that's brought up right at the beginning. Talking about still not being able to input those coordinates, and then by the end, figuring out how it's done because he pretty much has his working basement lab that he can work from. So, yeah, it works out nicely and gives us a bit of insight into sliding technology. Very cool. But, while Quinn's inside, there's a great scene between Maggie and Remy reflecting on their lives and their homes. The fact that Maggie's world had been destroyed, Quinn has found out he's from another world, and Remy, of course, Earth Prime being invaded by Cro-Mags, I think it's a cool little scene where they just reflect on how lost they are. And being a group sort of brings them together, they are their own family.
Well, exactly. I thought it would have been good if Maggie had done a little bit more with her father, because it was kind of like just that one little scene. They didn't follow up on it too much, really, and it would have been neat to see what more issues she has with her father. She says something like, "We always called him the general," like instead of dad. So I thought that was kind of a neat little addition to her character.
Yeah, exactly. More depth for the character. She seems to be growing a lot more this season rather than last season, where, a lot of the time she was just a bit of a flimsy character.
Well, yeah, and that's another thing that iReaction said, that Zikri was the one responsible for leading the charge on fixing her character, not letting her be so, what's just used for the sexiness of her character, but trying to make her more realistic. And he shared this funny anecdote about Zikri. In order for him to write better for Maggie, Marcus Zikri went and watched every single one of Carrie Warner's movies. Got them all on videotape, watched all of them, even watched all her Skinamax features because he wanted to understand what her range was, and then once he had that, he was able to start writing better for her, and still make her militaristic, but was able to input some more compassion and actually give her a little bit more humor, because apparently she was better at the humor than the deep dramatic stuff, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's just giving him more depth, which is a good thing for this character.
I mean, I've seen the only other thing never even saw Anaconda. The only other thing I've seen her in really was this movie, or it wasn't even a real movie. Well, it's a real movie, but it was a TV movie on VH1, and it was about, she was a singer, but she could not sing. She was really bad. And her producer finds a housewife who apparently can sing, and they use the housewife's voice but Maggie's looks in order to make her album and do her live shows. And then, of course, it all falls apart. And, the mother is recognized for her great voice, and and then Maggie's character, Carrie Warner's character is ruined at the end there. But it was a interesting little movie on VH1 many years ago.
Yeah, I saw Anaconda. I thought she was good in Anaconda. She also did a sequel to Hellraiser, 5th or 6th one or something like that, which was
I've not seen any of them, so I have no idea.
But yeah, she's doing good. I liked her in this episode. I think it's very cool for her.
Yeah, it's like you're not rooting for her to miss the slide anymore.
And of course we get an alt Quinn in this episode. And like we were saying, I really do think they're two separate characters. I think they're very well defined as separate characters, and Jerry O'Connell, I think, knocks it out of the park when it comes to playing an alternate version of himself. And the shots of the two of them together, I think, were actually really well done,
Oh, yeah.
We've said before, when they get Clinton Derricks in to play alt Remy's and stuff like that, it feels a bit off. But, seeing the two of them in the scene together was all right. Maybe the eye line was off a little bit, but I think it was
in the very beginning. Yeah, the first scene they had together, it was a little bit off, but it got better as it went through the episode. Yeah, I agree. Jerry O'Connell did a great job. He was told by Zikri, the writer, to play Careless Quinn as if he was like a spoiled 12-year-old, which he did really well. The stutter that Jerry put in, that was his idea, and it really makes them seem like two very different characters, which I really liked. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and of course, there's the thing about the arrogance that he has.
Oh,
but he's also gone a little mad because he's been the only man on Earth for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I think that just adds to rounding out the character a lot more.
I think I saw this on Messages in Time, but it was just a little throwaway thing. I just thinking about now. Someone said that Careless Quinn was wearing the same clothes that our Quinn Prime wore in the pilot. I don't know if he was, 'cause I can't remember now. But that's what someone says. Like, oh, well, that'd be a nice little touch if he was doing that.
Interesting. Yeah, I can't say I noticed. But we also get a little bit of a throwback here. Of Remy getting some cash, because he comes in, the two Quins are working on recreating the sliding device, and Remy's been to the bank and scored himself some gold, which is actually really good thinking.
It is.
I just thought it was a good throwback, because in that first couple of seasons, there was a lot of talk about getting money and paying for hotel rooms and whatnot, and we're going to actually even get into it in the next episode as well. But yeah, just the fact that Remy is thinking on his feet, getting money because he feels they'll need it as they continue their sliding journey. Very cool. Yeah, so the two Quins recreate the sliding device.
Which is really small, by the way.
Yeah, well, it's not as small as the timer, though.
No, not as small as the timer, but it's much smaller than what he had in his basement.
It's true, yeah. And this one does have to transport an entire planet, so
yes.
I guess, thinking about it, it is actually kind of a small thing.
Yeah.
And our Quinn actually gives the other Quinn a pretty big compliment of saying, like, his design is inspired,
Oh, yeah.
And it probably does come from that idea that, Quinn's original design was huge, He had to have it fit in the basement there. It was that big rotary fan thing.
Right, exactly.
And they seem to have been able to just bring all that down into a nice, small little compact carry-like device.
Well, with a character like Careless Quinn, if you really want to get him to help you or do stuff, you compliment him, like you say, wow, this is amazing what you did here. This is incredible. Then they become more open because they're just so full of themselves. You're feeding that ego.
Exactly. And they slide, and they, just like the beginning of the episode, they slide right back to where they were already in Quinn's basement. But it is actually being used as some sort of refuge in a way. Mm-hmm. And it's run by these two nuns, which are the same person. They're the doubles of each other. And I think these characters are really good. The two nuns.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Being that they are the same person, but, again, different. Just,
right.
Not unlike Quinn and the alt Quinn. I think they work really well as these leaders. Because you got, like, one that's, like, real, like, tough and she carries a shotgun. Mm-hmm. Whereas the other one is, you don't really see her being all that tough. But she looks similar. She wears white as opposed to black, and she's a bit more, in tune with the spiritualness in sort of riling people up, telling stories that relate to their situations. So they play off each other really well. And later in the episode, when they're talking about whether or not they should go ahead with bringing everybody back to their world, and she tells that story of how everything was doubled and how she loves her sister. She looks at her and sees like a reflection of herself, She's the reflection of everything that she knows about herself. I mean, it's being projected back at her, all her strengths, all her weaknesses, exaggerated and put in your face, You have no choice but to be better because you see that other person. And of course that's relating to how Quinn and alt Quinn react to each other.
Oh yeah, no, those nuns were great. I liked especially how she adapted the story of Noah's Ark and how it related to what happened to them with the Slidewave. How Noah's Ark was always 2 by 2, and destroying the world so that they could see what happened. And they said, well, with this Slidewave, what happened was God sent this wave and, he turned everyone into doubles so they could see the reflection of themselves and what they had done to the world and how awful they had become. I thought that was kind of neat the way they worked that in there because, as we know, or as we believe, it depends on what your religious background is, but the Bible was written by man interpreting what he sees happening around him. So this is kind of like they're almost like adding like a new part to the Bible for themselves, that like this is how we came to here. This is how this fits into our religion. God saw what we were doing, didn't like it, and said, boom, now you're all double. Look at what you've done. Take a good hard look at what you've done. And then deal with it. So I thought that was really kind of cool.
Yeah, and the figuring out of, what would it be like if suddenly the population just doubled, just overnight, bang. What does she say? Like, what was 5 billion became 10 billion, And what does that do to a world? What happens to natural resources when suddenly the world needs to accommodate for twice as many people as there was before?
Exactly.
Very cool, very, in depth. For the time, they've got 45 minutes per episode. They've got to get this message out. I think it's very well fleshed out.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And, of course, the Alt Quinn and his major arrogance feels that he needs to prove to them that they're from another world. So he activates the device, the sliding device, and it starts to spark up a bit. So they throw water on it, and of course now it's broken.
Yep.
And he starts talking about like how he feels so superior to everyone else. Like he can't stand people because they're so stupid. Yet while he was the only person on the world, he went mad. He just wanted other people around. Yet here he is criticizing the stupidity of people. And again, it's that reflection where Quinn throws back in his face. He said, "Man, look. How are you better than these people? You started a fire, they put it out. How does that make you any better than they are?" A very cool message, really. Yeah, that whole just reflection of yourself. Can you see yourself being better because you are being reflected back at yourself? Now they've got a problem. They've got to fix the device. They've got to figure out what the unique slide signature is for the people who appeared. So, there's all this stuff going on. Of course, they need to get stuff to fix the sliding device as well. So that generates a problem because in this world, it seems like one big boss has taken control of like the area or something like that. It's like political structure has broken down. So like people, gangs or whatever it is, have sort of taken control. So, it's not just going down to Radio Shack and picking up what you need. It's actually tough out on the street. So
now remember, it was Radio Shed. Trademark. Be careful.
Radio Shed.
They're the competitor, What I didn't understand about that whole Radio Shed trip, they went down there and got their stuff, but then the cops were chasing them afterwards. Why was that? Was that just because they had technology that they thought would be useful? Or why are they chasing them?
I kind of got the impression that like these guys, because they had guards there at the Radio Shed.
Yeah.
So it seems like, the big boss kind of wants to control everything. So maybe they just thought that these guys were being a bit suspect by coming in here and buying all these things. Like, what are they doing with it? Are they going to build a bomb or something like that? Do they want to attack the boss in some way? I don't know. I just think that was a reason. Like, they thought they were being a bit suspect. They told the big boss, so the boss said, well, track them down, bring them to me.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. Speaking of the boss, though, I was like, okay, it was kind of neat. This guy was like the boss of everything and, took over. But like, I'm wondering, how did this guy who wrote greeting cards get to be the boss? Like, he slides, the whole world slides, and like, he just decides right then, you know what, I am going to do this and become the boss of this whole area. Like, I would have liked to have heard more about how he went up the ranks, I guess, because doesn't seem like a very super aggressive guy.
Yeah, it is a bit of a cliche, which I still think runs till today. You look at shows like The Walking Dead. You got characters in there who are like the most badass, super loved characters, but before the zombie apocalypse, there's Glenn, he was a pizza delivery guy, and then there's Carol, who was just, this mousy, battered wife, who is now like a total badass. So it is a cliche that kind of rolls on to this day, where it's just like the person had some menial job, but in the apocalypse, suddenly they can become the big boss of badassdom.
Right.
But you're right. We don't get much backstory for him, really, like how he got into that position. I don't even think he has a name. I think they just call him the big boss or the boss.
Yeah,
the whole episode, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so they're getting this whole thing about how they need more electricity in order to generate the global Slidewave. And, coincidentally enough, the big boss's hideout is the power plant.
Because that's where I would, like, set up my, my empire, right there in the power plant, because that's the height of luxury,
Yeah. They get into even more, like, interesting stuff. Like I was saying, they get into how the world is, with the doubled population. They also get into this thing about, like, it's been 3 years, and some people who, quote-unquote, appeared have had children with, the local people
Right.
from this world, you know? So will those children slide with them, or will they stay there because only the people who appeared have this slide signature? They don't really get into a conclusion on that.
Right.
But at least they bring it up and they address it, you know? It is interesting to think. And I think that's pretty much where the nun gets into the whole thing about the reflections of yourself and so on and so forth. And they ultimately land on, this world cannot sustain the 10 billion people anymore.
Right,
We
exactly.
have to set things back to the way they were, regardless of how it's going to impact people who have children or whatever.
This is something that came up in the Messages in Time. Might as well mention it now about children. You know, people who had children with the, people who were from this dimension. What would happen to them when the slide wave goes off? And there was a long thread about this, discussing what would happen to those kids. And they said, you know what? Most likely the kids would end up staying there because they don't have a sliding signature because they didn't slide. So,
Yeah, that's what I would think.
yeah, so that's what their ultimate conclusion was, that they would just stay there, which that's fine, but it still sucks because, you come to this, you were forced into this world, nothing that you did. You were forced into this world and you meet someone, whether it's someone that you already knew, and you end up having a different relationship, or it's someone brand new you never met before. You start a relationship, you have this life together for 3 years, and then suddenly, boom, gone. No way to get back there. Family's just broken up.
Yeah, it's tough to think about, but like I
it's
said,
a hard decision for them to make.
yeah. It's going back, like, we haven't said this for a while, but this is one of those worlds where you would love to maybe go back to one or both of them to kind of see how it played out afterwards. Like, how did people deal with this after, like you said, these families have been broken up.
Like, technically, and this would make it very difficult, and it'd just take too long. Our sliders could go back to that world, I think, because they have the coordinates.
That's true.
So they could, if there was someone in particular that, wanted to get back to his wife or her husband, they could sort of like act as a ferry, taking them back and forth between the two worlds. But that would turn this into a whole different type of show if they spent time doing that.
Yeah. And maybe that's what Alt Quinn ended up doing.
That's a good way to think about it. Maybe that's why. He said, I'll stay here, continue my work, fix this machine, get it working better, and I'll reunite people. So, yeah.
And, the ending part here, I think it's kind of tacked on in a way because, they go to the big boss's thing, they get captured. They introduce this guy, Roberto, right at the end.
Yeah.
Like, he has no... There's the cop, Eldon, who works for the big boss, because it's that whole thing about how the boss owns the police. Again, it's cliched. I don't know, it felt very tacked on at the end. All these people just introduced right at the end. Can we care too much about them? We've known them for 2 seconds. Whatever. We end up saving the whole world.
Right. Those last couple of characters they introduced, they're very just like, they're what you expect to see in a movie. There's nothing special about them, really. Unfortunately, even the big boss, who could have been an amazing character if they had more time, perhaps.
Yeah. And I honestly don't think I would want to spend the time with the big boss at all. I really liked how they spent the time talking about, how the world had been impacted, getting into the nuts and bolts of all that stuff, because I thought that was super interesting.
Oh yeah, they fleshed out the story really good, and just these guys at the end, just basically just so they can get an ending and fix things. These guys were around.
Exactly. And like I said, it leads to Quinn looking over Alt Quinn's specs, getting his timer to input coordinates. They are heading off to find Quinn's brother. It works for me. I just thought this was a fantastic episode.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I liked it a lot. More than I thought. I like I said, I don't remember a lot of these episodes, but I was like, yeah, this was good. This was good.
And now it's time for another episode of Words to Live By with Colin Mallory.
Why does the drink have an umbrella in it? I never really thought about it. More decoration, I suppose. Maybe it's important to protect your drinks from the elements? You might be right.
This has been another episode of Words to Live By with Colin Mallory. Alright, so getting into our second episode discussion today. The episode is Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Written by, so we have teleplay by Bill Dial and Mark Scott Zickery, with story by Chris Black and David Peckinpah. So a few people had their hands in the writing of this story.
I don't know if that's too many cooks in the kitchen. We will find out.
Yes, and directed by David Peckinpah. This originally aired on July 6th of 1998.
I know you must be sincere in your belief that we're brothers, and I can see some resemblance, but I'm afraid it's impossible. Surely my mother and father would have told me if I had a brother, if it were true.
They did. You just haven't gotten the message yet. Guys.
What you're saying makes no sense to me. My parents died when I was a child.
Did they leave you anything?
Yes, but I've moved many times over the years. Some things got lost or left behind.
Oh, brother, you've got to have what I'm looking for.
You're welcome to come to my house, and you can stay if you have need.
Look, you're just gonna leave the wings back there?
I'll come back later with a wagon.
Aren't you afraid someone will steal it?
No.
Scoundrel.
Hey!
Where do you people come from?
It's a little complicated.
Never seen anyone dressed like you.
Likewise.
Our trio slides using the dimensional coordinates reprogrammed by careless Quinn and arrive to see who eventually turns out to be Colin Mallory, hand gliding overhead, quickly crashing into a tree. It turns out that he is a tinkerer/inventor, but being that this world has shunned technology, much like the Amish culture of Earth Prime, he is looked down upon by his townspeople. After Quinn recovers Colin's memory microdot, they all slide together into a new dimension. Upon arrival, Colin is fascinated by this world and its technology, but due to his extreme naivete, he is caught up in a crime masterminded by the double of his lady love Suzanne from Amish World and her mother. Quinn, Remy, and Wade are questioned by police about Colin, who was seen stealing a dead body from a cryogenics ward. Suzanne's plan being to thaw the body out, take a sample of DNA, and then use that sample to unlock the frozen subject's assets, such as money, cars, or homes. While locked in Suzanne's home, Colin manages to use a cell phone to call Quinn, and they arrive to save him, followed close behind by the cops who arrest Suzanne and her mother and find out that Colin never did steal the frozen body, but instead realized something was not right and filled the coffin up with frozen turkeys from a nearby kitchen.
So, here we are.
Yes, we are.
You know, I
was thinking.
Sorry, you first.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just thinking that when I was a kid, I used to have an imaginary brother.
So did I.
Really?
Yeah, his name was Jedediah.
Mine was Skip.
Skip?
Yeah.
Is that a name?
Different worlds.
That is beginning to become more clear to me.
I guess when you have a brother and you grow up together and you see him all the time, you get kind of tired of looking at him, and you really can't think of anything else to say to him.
I suppose that is the way it is.
Well, I've never had a brother. We didn't grow up together, and well, we don't know each other.
Yes.
Yet I still can't think of anything else to say.
I have a feeling that will change.
Okay, so getting into another quick impression. I had a lot of fun with the last one, so let's see how we go here.
Remy, Sean Connery, and Christopher Walken enter a hotel room.
Wow.
Take your coat off and stay a while.
There's one of those cathode image display units we saw in the store window. Is it for us?
Everything in this room is for us.
For keeps? No. We're just renting. Hold this.
Alright. Christopher hands Remy a can of Pepsi and pops open a second one.
Now, watch.
He hands the second Pepsi to Remy.
Taste it.
Remy sips the drink.
Odd. What is it? It's cola. And what is that? No one knows.
You know, if we've got 3 days here, I could stand to do a little shopping. What about you, Christopher? Give the brothers a chance to do a little bonding? Christopher holds up a wad of cash.
Now, Aren't you sorry you made fun of me for trying all those ATM machines along the way?
Sean Connery hugs Christopher. I love you, Christopher.
I knew I'd hit one sooner or later.
Okay, see ya.
Hey, don't do anything I wouldn't do.
Arturo and Christopher exit. And scene. Yeah, I like it. I like this. This is cool.
Woo!
This would be that moment there on the forums. I think they've jumped the shark. There could be a dimension out there where Sean Connery and Christopher Walken starred in Sliders. There could be.
Exactly. And again, if anybody wants to pick a scene from the episode of the week, feel free to transcribe that and send it on over.
Operator, I'd like the police, please. Maybe that's him.
Sergeant Lou Dawson, LAPD.
That was quick.
And Colin Mallory.
Yeah?
You're Brown, and you're Becky.
Yeah.
Is there a problem, officer? Have we done something wrong?
I don't think you've done anything, but there's definitely a problem. You mind if I sit down? My dogs are killing me.
Go ahead.
Look here now. Every time there is a transaction made in cash, there's a photograph taken for the police.
Is there something wrong with cash?
It's just unusual, so we take a picture to make sure the cash wasn't obtained illegally. Why don't you use your bone graft for your DNA debit transaction?
We prefer cash.
We're from Canada.
My mother always told me never spend money that you can't see.
That's good advice. You have had your bone grafts, haven't you?
Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Well, tell me now, who is the guy in the big hat?
That's my brother, Colin.
Where is he?
We haven't seen him for a few hours.
Well, I have.
Officer, what is he doing in this photo?
He's stealing a corpse from a cryogenic morgue.
All right, so getting into our discussion of Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Here we are. The gang slide on to Quinn's brother's world and find him immediately. They talk about like how, oh, we don't have too long here, so it might be hard to find him. And then he literally flies over them. I mean, convenient?
Yeah, you could argue, I guess, that the dimensional coordinates somehow, zeroed in, on his signature or whatever. So you could argue that, but yeah, it is very convenient.
But they also set up as well that Colin is like way into science because this is an Amish-like world, so very technologically advanced, pretty much prehistoric technology-wise.
Yeah.
But Colin is inventing all kinds of stuff, beginning here with a flying machine, a hang glider.
I wonder, why did his alt parents leave Colin in a world like this? Because not that they would know what he would be into, but they dropped Quinn off on a world that was just a normal paced world where there was technology, maybe not as advanced as they have, obviously, but it was a world where there was a chance that he could, excel in that type of thing. But then for Colin, they just take him to a world where technology is completely shunned. It's like when they showed up there in their sliding, vortex, How was it for these parents to explain to Amish parents who they were, where they came from, what they're doing, what this sliding thing is, what the Cro-Mag human war is all about, and how they're going to come back for him someday? It just seems like if they dropped him off in this world, that the Amish parents they dropped him with would have been like, "Whoa, you devil, get away from me." It's like,
exactly.
Why
how
choose
everybody
this
else
world?
on this world reacts to this kind of
exactly. So it's odd that they would choose this place.
Well, at the same time, you could argue, why did they split the brothers up?
Right. Yeah,
Why
exactly.
wouldn't they leave them together? Give them both to, the parents that Quinn grew up with.
Yeah.
But, for the sake of what they're doing, they're introducing a brother character. They can't just, retroactively say, no, he always had a brother.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, true.
Yeah. And of course, going through all the other worlds where we've seen Quinn, he's never had a brother in any other parallel world. So whatever,
Yes.
this is where they're going. They need to explain it somehow. So this is better than any. I agree. I'm not sure why they would leave him on this Amish-like world.
Yeah, it just seems like if they left him in a normal world, when they pick him up later, it'd be a lot easier to explain, and he'd be more open to understanding, sliding and stuff like that. If he grew up in a world that was just like, a world like we grew up in, where like there's sci-fi and like things like that can happen in the movies, whereas here, there are no movies. They would not, oh, what is this? Moving pictures with sound, and, they would not get it.
It makes for an interesting character at the same time. You've got this naive guy who they set up to actually be pretty smart, in his world. Yeah. He's a very smart person who is doing all the stuff. They go through all these things, like he's generating electricity, which is something that was invented by, people like Tesla and things like that. Like, he's smart for the world he comes from. But, yeah, he does have this naivety about him because of, where they're going to go. He's going to see all kinds of, major technological advances which probably wouldn't come to exist on this world for 50, 60 years. Longer, probably.
I found this out, when I was looking up stuff about this this episode as well. I was wondering about this Charlie O'Connell, because we've seen him before in a couple other episodes of Sliders,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, they finally got him on full time. I'm like, oh, that's good. And like, I just assumed that Charlie O'Connell was another actor who was trying to find his, big break, his role, his movie, TV show, whatever. He was in a couple other episodes, and then he came on for this season. Apparently, and this is what I found as well, iReactions told us about this as well, he was really hired just like he was fresh out of college. Charlie was fresh out of college and unemployed, and Jerry just wanted to hang out with his brother all day. So they said, let's get him in here. I don't even think he graduated acting. I don't know if he was in acting school or what. It just, so they got this guy who really has no acting experience except for those episodes of Sliders he's been in already. I thought he was an actor, trying to work his way, but apparently not. He only acted in Sliders, and then to this season, boom, there he is. He's in the show. I thought that was interesting that, like, he's just not an actor. He just wanted, Jerry said, let's just bring him on. I was like, oh, okay, So he was supposed to be, the character of Colin was supposed to be much more aggressive. He was supposed to be a thrill seeker, whereas Quinn would be the brain. They were trying to get Quinn back to being just the brainy guy, using his head. And David Peckinpah said, well, we're not going to do that with this character because we don't know anything about Charlie, really. We don't know if he can perform that type of role. We don't know if he could be like that good of an actor to be a thrill seeker and deliver it in a convincing way. So they said, let's write him. It was that Bill Dial that we mentioned up there. Bill Dial said, well, let's write him as a more naive character, someone who's more innocent, and then we don't have to worry about having these great highs and lows with his character. We can just keep everything very easy and just laid back for Charlie, so we can figure out what he can do. So that's why he ended up being so naive. That was their plan.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. That actually tells me two things. Charlie O'Connell is cheap. As an actor, they don't have to pay him a lot.
Yep.
And in the opening credits, it does say introducing Charlie O'Connell as Colin Mallory.
I didn't notice that.
To which I was like, no, he's been in 2 other episodes already.
Right.
we spotted him during our rewatch because we knew he was coming into the show full time.
Right.
So I guess technically this is his first starring role, whereas those other ones were kind of just drop-ins and he had a couple of lines and then he was gone. So not really a breakout performance for him.
Yeah, now it's important to note, and I found this out as well, this is not just about nepotism. I mean, it is, but it's not, It's like, let's get my brother in there. It's not like that, but basically, Jerry O'Connell had said in interviews that he was real happy when John Rhys Davies was on the show, and it was like a family, like he was like the mentor in the show, but he was also like a father figure to them, you know, in real life. It felt like they were just like this really good, you know, group of friends that hung out together. So there was a family feel to the set. And when he left, that was gone. You know, that dynamic was gone. And so he said, you know, with him leaving and, you know, of course, Sabrina Lloyd, you know, getting herself, you know, fired or / quitting, whatever it was, he wanted to get some of that family feel back. So why not bring in one of his own family members to sort of make it more happy, more friendly, you know, have a better time than they had during that second half of the third season where it was just all to hell.
So I guess we can maybe look forward to getting a bit more of that dynamic back. As the season goes on, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Never know. So they get into it, you know, we get to know Colin a little bit more. He, in his community, is seen as a bit of a nuisance.
Yeah.
Which I think is funny, you know, because he's, you know, he's hang gliding and stuff like that. I love that they say, you know, what's with the hang glider? You're just going to leave the hang glider there? Is it going to get stolen? No. Like, who's going to take that?
Right, exactly.
But then he's like, hang glider, that's a great name for it. Yeah.
You know, I got to say, one more thing about Charlie, and I mentioned this in the top of the show. It's like, you know what? Cut your hair, Charlie. Come on, man. What the hell? Every time he's been here in Sliders, his hair is exactly the same. It's like, get into character a little bit. Just trim it up a little bit. You know?
Yeah.
Like
he's got a first season Quinn do.
Yeah, he does. And like, it seems like, I don't know, like if he's living all this time with these Amish people, I think he would have adapted to their hairstyle somewhat, but I don't know. It's just distracting to me because when he was that cop, in the Dragon World, whatever, I forget the name of the episode, but in that one, he had that long hair too. It just sort of, it takes me out of it a little bit because like I start looking at him as not the character, but as just plain old Charlie McConnell with the long hair. O'Connell, sorry.
And they're going to play on that towards the tail end of the episode as well.
Yeah.
You finally get him into some modern clothes and stuff.
Yes.
But, you know, they set up here that there's this girl that he's interested in, who is Susanna, and her mother doesn't like Colin at all. You know, and they bring that up, like, because they need to talk him into sliding.
Right.
Pretty much. So they're running around trying to find the microdot wherever it is. They end up finding it. So he gets to, you know, at least get the message that Quinn got from their birth parents. There is one thing that I noticed, though, which I think is a mistake. Because they're running around, they're looking for the microdot. And they look at the timer, and the timer is counting down from like 1 minute 50 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then they immediately say, oh no, we've only got 10 minutes.
Right.
And I'm like, no, it just said 1 minute and whatever seconds. So that's not right.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And that came up in the messages in time a lot because it was very clear because you could see it. It was just so clear. So, yeah.
Yeah. But whatever, you know, they probably said 10 minutes because, you know, he's got to put the microdot on his head. He's got to get the message from his parents. And then they've got to talk him into coming with them. You know, they say, you know, people around here don't appreciate you. And he says, well, what about Susanna? Well, you know, she said she was going to marry the other guy. She's promised that other guy. So just leave her as well. Which is all right. I mean, you know, they need to get him to go with them.
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's where the story needs to go. And I think the only reason that Susanna and her mother were there at the beginning was because they're going to bring in their alternates on the next world. So he has a bit of a, you know, an encounter with alternates and sort of gets to know what sliding is all about, you know, getting used to being on a parallel world where things are the same but different.
Yep.
He needs to be initiated into that concept. So that was the only reason they were there, really. So yeah, so they get to it pretty much. You know, he says, yes, okay, I'm going to come with you. And, so they go to another world. And, you know, it seems like a pretty normal world except for, you know, they get into this bone graft thing. You pay for things using DNA debit or bone grafts. Again, that's just setting up, like, where we're going to go with the episode. Because in this world, Susanna and her mother are kind of grifters.
Yes.
And it seems that this DNA debit and bone grafting thing is relatively new. And as the cop who comes into the episode, and he's a really cool character, I liked him. He says, you know, with new technology comes new crimes.
Right.
So that's a cool way of explaining it. We've got this brand new DNA debit thing where people scans your DNA and you're all good. That's how you can pay for things.
Right.
But they've also got cryogenics, and that means people are now hijacking rich, cryogenically frozen people and using their DNA in order to steal their money.
Did you know the guy who played the cop, his name is Ben Jones. We got a little throwback here to another episode. Ben Jones is best known for playing Cooter on the Dukes of Hazzard.
Another Dukes of Hazzard connection there.
Exactly. So, yeah, when I saw him, I was like, hey, that's Cooter. I'm like, awesome. So, yep, got another Dukes of Hazzard reference.
Yeah, that's really cool. But aside from getting into that whole DNA thing, before that, when they first slide in to the middle of the road.
Yes.
It continues to set up that whole naive thing of Colin. He doesn't know to get out of the way of the truck, which
Right.
I don't know. It's pretty obvious that you would get out of the way of this thing.
Yes.
Just because it's a truck doesn't mean he doesn't know what transportation is. He would know that if a giant thing on wheels is rolling towards you,
Right.
get out of its way.
The truck didn't seem to be going super fast, though, I will say. I'm watching it, and I'm like, all right, is it just going 5 miles per hour or what?
Yeah,
It
that
seems
was
so slow.
shot terribly.
Yeah.
That thing was just not going anywhere near, any kind of speed that it would on a road. It was just slowly rolling at it.
I know.
Ridiculous. So yeah, they could have done a better job shooting that.
Right, yes.
And they get into Colin experiencing a modern world.
It was fun, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. He's amazed by the TV. He's amazed by the telephone.
Right.
Again, and taking these ideas and sort of weaving them into the storyline. So, when he's amazed by the telephone, Quinn says, yeah, this book here has, all the numbers. Anybody or any person or business who has a phone, their number is in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So later on, when he needs to get in touch with Quinn, he knows, oh, hey, look, I've got this phone.
The Great Book of Numbers.
Yeah, the Great Book of Numbers will have the number of the hotel, so I can call it. So it was cool how they kind of took his amazement and weaved it into the storyline. I really enjoyed that, And then, of course, they got the funny things about him. Apparently this episode was probably sponsored by Pepsi.
Yes,
Even though they never actually say Pepsi, you get
Right.
to see those cans.
It's cola.
And then he's amazed by the softness of the toilet paper and the fact that the toilet's inside, that it's not an outhouse,
Exactly.
Very funny stuff.
I like the scenes. I'm not sure myself about Charlie just as an actor, though. We bagged on, everybody was bagging on Maggie in season 3. And obviously she's gotten better in season 4. But Colin, I'm just not sure what it is. I think a lot of it might have to do with the way he's playing this character. If you notice, he doesn't use contractions, which I don't know if that's the way Amish people talk. They don't use contractions because that's too modern.
True.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But to me, his delivery is really stilted when he's delivering these lines. And I don't know, it bugged me a little bit. I liked how he was with this whole scene here, wanting to take things apart because that's his character. That fits, but the way he talked and delivered the lines, I'm just I'm thinking it'll get better as it goes on. But it just took me out a little bit, just that his line delivery.
No, I can agree to an extent. It's not the best. I didn't know this until we started talking about it, but he is a relatively new actor. So.
Oh, yeah. Brand new. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I'm kind of landing on the side of I can forgive him for this early stuff, and maybe he'll get better as the episodes go along. We'll have to wait and see as we continue to say we don't remember a lot about these seasons.
No.
We'll see how it goes. I'm forgiving a lot for him because I am finding his scenes quite humorous.
You're nicer than I am. What can I say?
Yeah. But you're right. The fact that he doesn't use contractions, it's almost like Data from TNG.
Exactly. That's what I was thinking of when I was watching. It's he's like Data, what the heck?
Yeah.
Well, to continue on my rant then, let me say, Quinn leaving his brother at the bar to go hit on some random woman, I don't think so. No. That's not so out of character, It's they were trying to set up this thing between him and Maggie for the longest time, and then, oh, well, I'm going to go hit on this woman over here. It's really? I was like, that's not right. That's so odd. They could have come with a better reason for him to get away from the bar, I think.
Yeah, because they do this whole thing as well about how Maggie and Remy have left in order to give them time together.
Right.
And they're a bit awkward with each other. Granted, this is kind of a big thing. They're not quite sure what to say to each other. So they go to the bar to get a drink. And you're right, just Quinn immediately just leaves him there to go and hit on some chick. As if he would. He knows his brother's from a simpler world. Why would he leave him alone?
Well, now to play devil's advocate, or to play David Peckinpah's advocate, I guess I could... Terms are interchangeable, right? To Sliders fan. To play devil's advocate here, there was a review of this, of course, on Earth Prime, and they reasoned that the reason Quinn did that was because both of them seemed to be a little uncomfortable with each other. They just found out. Well, Colin just found out that he had a brother, and so they're not quite sure how to go forward with their relationship. I'm guessing is what they were reasoning. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess that could be a possible reason, for him just saying, well, why don't you hang out here? I'm going to go over here for a moment and do my thing. I guess I could see that, because sometimes, you do get into the situations with someone where you're like, okay, well, what do we talk about now? I'm just going to go and do this, So I can understand what they're saying there. I don't think that's a very good reason. I think like I said, they could have come up with something much better than that to explain why he left Colin alone for a few minutes rather than that. Because that's so out of character for Quinn.
But, we do get in this thing. Susanna takes away Colin, and they go and they snatch this cryogenically frozen body. He buys her story pretty quickly, yes, because he's got that naive thing going. At the same time, he does figure things out pretty quickly. Like, he goes along with it, but, he's not stupid,
Right.
They do set up that thing. He's a little bit simple, sure, but he's a smart guy. They have set that up. He's definitely a smart person, so... I think how it resolves at the end is actually really, really good. He uses the phone book, he gets in contact with them, they come and get him, and then they get in this whole showdown. But of course that awesome actor playing the cop,
Right.
What was his name? Ben Jones.
Mm-hmm.
He's onto it as well, so he follows them and stuff like that. I think when they have that scene with the cop and they're sort of trying to figure out are they breaking the law by not having these bone grafts and stuff like that, where the cop's just like, well, if you don't have, hypothetically, if you don't have one and you're from Canada, then maybe that person from Canada might want to get back to Canada straight away and stuff like that. So, I thought they had a great interplay. But, he of course follows the Sliders to the scene, and everything gets exposed. And then the big reveal that he didn't actually steal a body anyway. He filled this cryotube with frozen turkeys.
Right. So yeah, it shows that he's not an idiot. He's very naive, but he's not an idiot. The thing that threw me off about this, not to be the one who bags on the episode, but the thing that threw me off, because I seem to be going on a rant here, on a roll today. When Colin's held captive in the room there, he just pulls out this cell phone. Now, obviously, it's, I guess, Suzanne's cell phone that he was intrigued by earlier. But I went back and I watched this sequence many times, trying to see when did he pickpocket that from Suzanne? Because she has it and she's talking on it, and then in the next scene, he has it. I'm trying to figure out where he decided in his head, I need to take that cell phone. It just, to me, it seems a little out of character. Maybe there was a scene that they wanted to put in where he was saying, oh, can I see that? Because that looks really neat, and he wants to take it apart and everything. But there was nothing like that in there. So it just kind of threw me off a little bit. I was like, where did he get that cell phone from?
They set it up when they first leave the bar, because she calls her mother, and he's astonished that the phone doesn't have a cord,
right,
unlike the phone in the hotel room. I think he sees the phone in the car when they get to her house.
Right.
I think he sees that she's left it there, and I think he picks it up at that point.
Because I was trying to find the place where he picked it up, and I could not find it. Maybe I just missed that scene in the scrolling. But yeah, I was wondering, where'd that come from? I didn't see him take it anywhere. So suddenly he just has a cell phone. I'm like, all right.
Nah, well, I actually have a bigger problem than the phone. In that, yes, he filled the cryotube with turkeys.
Yes.
Frozen turkeys. Which, at the end of the day, means no crime was committed.
Right.
And even the cop says he prevented a crime from being committed. But the reason for them arresting them in the first place was because Colin had stolen this cryogenically frozen rich dude.
Right.
Like, you think they could have invested the crime a bit closer to figure out that no body was actually ever even taken.
Well, I'm thinking when he showed up at the end there, he called out Susanna and her mother by name. So maybe they have done this before, or maybe they've been a suspect for a while, and now this is they have proof that it was attempted or something like that. So I'm thinking that they must be known to the cops, because he came up and he was like, oh, Susanna so-and-so and mother da-da-da-da. You know, like they sort of knew who they were. So I'm thinking maybe they were already suspect or had been, you know, had attempted this at some other time, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I could understand that. When the cop first showed up, he's talking to Quinn. He says, your brother is here stealing a cryo body from the morgue, which he isn't.
Right, exactly.
And if they'd looked at all the people who were cryogenically frozen, they would have seen that nobody was actually taken.
Right.
Really, the only thing he's guilty of is stealing a cryo tube.
Right. And turkeys.
And some turkeys.
And if it's close to Thanksgiving, you know, that's a big crime right there. So,
yeah.
You know, what about Quinn? He just has his lock-picking equipment with him. Him and Wade must have had some lessons. You know, she must have taught him.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that did stick out to me as well. He just pulls out lock-picking equipment from
and he calls it out.
nowhere.
He's like, watch this. You know, he's like, watch what I can do. It's like, okay.
It's like for 3 years he's been carrying that around. Now he's finally got a chance to pick a lock.
He's like,
yes. Been carrying this equipment with me for all this time.
It's all these little things that I forget about. And I was thinking, oh, he'd just break the window and open it up from the inside or something. But no, he uses the lockpick. All right. And I got to say that we should apologize to the poor Canadians, the poor Canadian fans of Sliders, because they really are pushing the whole Canadian thing. Now, I think it was EarthPrime.com said this is where the whole Canadian thing started. But no, they've used the Canadian explanation before. They've used that excuse in previous episodes. I seem to remember them saying, oh, well, we're from Canada.
Well, I think a couple episodes, it was probably the Cro-Mag one with Chromatus. I think they told him that they were from, like, Oregon or something, like the inland or something. Not quite Canada, but...
Right. I could have sworn, though, I heard them say Canada in earlier episodes, like not even this season. I'm thinking, like, not last season, maybe the season before. I could have sworn they used the Canada excuse before to say, oh, yeah, we're from Canada. I could be wrong, but I seem to remember it happening before. But they really hit it hard here. They're like, oh, we're in the beginning, you know, they're like, oh, how can you be dressed like that? Oh, we're from Canada. And then when they get to this world, you know, it's like, oh, we don't have those bone grafts because we're from Canada. You know, it's like, I don't know how they do things up there. It's like, sorry, Canadians, you know, we love you.
Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting to see like how many more episodes they use that for.
Right.
Yeah, take these gentlemen downtown and give them the penthouse. And I'll tell you, if he's thawed out, he is dead for good. We can't refreeze him.
When I saw Uncle where it was frozen, I suspected there was something wrong with the whole thing. The staff kitchen was right next door, so...
Well, where's the cranberry sauce?
I did not have time.
It's a joke.
Okay, well, let's get into messages in time.
All right. So for this episode, someone said, and I didn't notice this, I didn't check it, but they said it's that the Sliders were not wearing the same clothes that they wore at the end of the last episode when they slid into Amish World.
Yes, I did notice that too.
Okay. See, I didn't notice this. I wasn't sure, but yeah, someone mentioned that. And I was like, oh, so they didn't go right to his world then? They had another adventure in between or something?
Although, no, they did slide directly to his brother's world because they got the coordinates. They figured out how to put the coordinates in. And they said, okay, let's go and find your brother then.
So maybe they have the same technology that Adam West had in the Batcave back in the 60s, that when they slide through, it just automatically changes their clothes.
Maybe.
Could be.
Or it didn't work the first time, so we had to like jigger it a bit more on the next one.
Perhaps,
all right, now we can go.
Perhaps that's what it is. Anyway, someone said, this was a funny episode. It harkens back to the season 1, the comedy that they had in those early seasons. And this was better because we have this new unproven actor. If it was too dramatic, it might not be so great if the new actor couldn't deliver. So, it was a good idea for them to keep this episode lighter, to introduce this new guy. Someone had a neat comparison here of the team dynamics, is what he was calling it. He said originally we had Arturo, who was the mentor. We had Remy, who was kind of the doubter. We had Quinn, the brains, and Wade was the glue that held everything together. But then Arturo leaves, or John Rhys Davies leaves, and it was then that Maggie came on and took on the quality of the professor's practicality. But the seriousness of the situation of trying to find Rickman, it sort of robbed Wade of her sense of adventure. And so now both women, Maggie and Wade, were both trying to be the glue that held the group together. So the sense of adventure was gone. The fun was gone. And we mentioned that too, that it's just not as fun as it used to be in that season 3, the episodes. So the team dynamics changed then, and we noticed that too, with all the fighting and stuff like that, the seriousness.
Yeah, definitely.
And then they said now, this new episode, we've got Quinn, who's, he's still the brain, and Remy's still the doubter, but together they are playing the part of mentor to Colin. Quinn is the science mentor, that type of thing, whereas Remy is the social mentor, showing them how to party and be loose. Maggie is still the practicality, but she's the glue holding them all together. And in fact, she's the glue in more ways than one. She always seems to have her arms around the guys lately.
That's true,
pull them together. And then Colin, he's a backup brain, but he is still very much the student like Quinn was in the beginning, and he's the one who has the sense of adventure now instead of Wade, because all this is brand new to him. Everything is brand new to him. So it's like we're kind of getting back to a better team dynamic than we had in season 3. And you can see that in the episodes. The stories are a little better. The interactions, the characters definitely acting a little bit better than they did in season 3. We've got this is kind of neat. I didn't pick up on this. We've got Colin now. We've got Quinn, and we've got Maggie. And if you think back to the was it late 80s, maybe mid 80s, there was a TV show on MTV called Remote Control, in which Carrie Warrer was the girl on the show, the hostess, and she starred with who? Colin Quinn. So
interesting connection.
I don't know if they planned that, but it's kind of funny to think about. We got Colin, Quinn, and Maggie. So nice little throwback there. Probably unintentional, but still. A lot of people said, like we did, they don't believe Quinn would just go up and hit on a woman. That just seemed out of character. They said it was nice that they don't have to run from the cops for once, although the cop was really laid back, he was like, oh, you don't have no bone grafts. As long as you're going back to Canada, it's okay. It's very accepting. Usually the cops they run into, want to run them in and arrest them and whatnot. So it was kind of nice. They didn't have to run for their lives.
And like I said, I like that actor. He was really good.
This one guy said, and I can kind of agree, as the episode starts coming into those last, final minutes, it all does move very quickly. I mean, it is one of those nice and tidy endings. Quinn picks a lock, saves Colin, cops show up, everything's wrapped up nicely. No need to stay and testify, just go on your way. It's like, I don't quite like that, he said. It's just like the old days, the writers pulling their old tricks where they have to come up with an ending real quick and it all just works out nicely. So he wasn't too happy with that. And he also agreed about the no contractions thing. It's just not a convincing delivery that Colin was given. All right, so now we got messages in time for the World Killer. For this one, this was very strange. Just this week, someone posted in the Messages in Time forum. Like this original thread that this person responded to was from March of 1995. It said, the original post. And it was someone who had said back in 95, hey, I heard Harry Shearer was going to be on Sliders. Is that true? Someone had responded back in 95. And then someone responded on November 1st saying, oh, yeah, Harry Shearer, the voice of this and that. He was in the first episode. He was the voice on the radio. He was the day tripper, the radio announcer. And I was just like, That's so weird that someone's
you do that?
responding after all this time. You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
like the people who originally posted that for 20 years have been keeping an eye on this thread.
I know.
In case somebody was going to make reference to Harry Shearer.
I know. It was so weird. I was like, oh my God, what is this? A new post? I'm like shocked. I was like, oh wow.
Maybe we're drawing people to these forums now. Or
I know.
something.
I know. People like at Google are like, what is going on here? People are going back to our old forums. Why? Well, whoever posted that, I wonder if they're a listener, and that's why they found the forums. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. And whoever you are, there was an email address there, but it was like it gets blacked out or part of it gets truncated, so you can't see it, I guess. But whoever that was, it'd be interesting to hear from you. So people were talking about how people were going to get back to their world with the new Slidewave. They thought that the machine was set to take those back with a signature from that world, like they had something in them that was identifying them, from that world. But they reasoned eventually that no, it's not like something innate in their bodies. It's just that that's where they were last. So it'll take them back to the last world, and that's why the sliders were also brought back to that last world, even though they're not from that world. That's the last world they were at. So it takes them, the Slidewave just takes them back to the previous place they were. So that made sense, because they were wondering, well, how come the sliders got slid back in the Slidewave? That shouldn't have happened, and this is how they reasoned it out, and that makes sense.
Yeah, like some sort of probably not residual radiation, but something like that. Like since all these people had slid there, then they've got this signature attached to them, so exactly. they will slide back, but everybody else who was already there will stay.
Yeah. They also brought up this thing which was kind of neat. I didn't think about when they do slide back to that abandoned world. No one's been there for 3 years, so they've got to get things back up and running. This is going to bring up a whole host of new problems. The food is going to be all spoiled. They're going to have to get farming back up and running again, get food production, everything's going to have to be restarted again. So this world's going to have a lot of new problems.
Yeah. And we didn't really get into it, but it is that whole thing of how the alt Quinn gets pretty selfless.
Yes.
They offer to take him to a new life, go to a new world, start a new life. No, he's going to stay there, and he's going to help the world get through their problems, which would involve getting the world operational again.
Yep.
Getting food and all kinds of stuff. So pretty cool. All right, so messages from Earth Prime. As I mentioned at the top of the show, we got an email from Nikki, and she, of course, pointed out that stuff about the tracker, which was very good.
Yeah.
But she also had some comments on Virtual Slide from last week. She writes, according to Dimension of Continuity, Torme said in a 1997 interview that the timer is an autonomous unit with a self-contained regenerative power chip. This, of course, applies to the original timer, and she also linked us to that on Dimension of Continuity. So, very helpful. We're glad that we've drawn Nikki to the Dimension of Continuity website. You say it all the time. Like, if you want to go and check out the stuff, you can just go to dimensionofcontinuity.com.
Ton of stuff, yep.
Yeah, so that's a little something she found on there. She also writes, as the Egyptian timer has a countdown feature, and Quinn has made adjustments, which would imply he also studied its function and never said any more about it, the same could be assured for it.
Right.
I think this is nothing that came up in the show. This is just something that Tracy Torme threw out there.
Right.
During interviews. So, yeah, an interesting little insight there. But she continues, she says, my view, which is as good as any, it's very true, is that a sliding system initializes and resets the power requirements of a timer. It's kind of like hooking your car up to diagnostic equipment. You don't need the equipment to know what's wrong, but without it, you may end up doing more work and getting less results. So it makes sense to rebuild the system and either create a new timer or reinitialize and rest the power system for the old one. So that makes a lot of sense, because that's what I was saying. Why are they rebuilding the timer? Why wouldn't they reverse engineer or try to fix the one that they've already got?
Right.
So she makes a compelling argument there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And then she ends off with, thanks for the shout out. I am keeping up and catching up simultaneously. So she's listening to our back catalogue, but listening to the episodes as we release them every week. Still.
Awesome.
So
Thanks.
that's really cool. I usually listen alone, but my kids sometimes listen with me. We do watch the show together. My oldest daughter's favourite episode is Fever, and my younger daughter's favourite is The King is Back. 2 pretty good episodes.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So thank you again for the email, Nikki. That's really great to hear from you. And of course, we love to hear from you guys. We love to hear what you're thinking about the episodes we're talking about. So please get in touch with us. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, loving the feedback. Loving the feedback.
Okay, so next week we will be discussing 2 more episodes. They are Just Say Yes and The Alternateville Horror.
And the only thing I remember is that the Alternateville Horror has something to do with ghosts. I don't remember anything else about it, whether it's explained scientifically or if it's just all fantasy. I don't remember anything besides that.
Yeah, I think it might be ghosts in the Chandler Hotel, like a Chandler Hotel centric episode.
Okay.
It's what they call a bottle episode.
Right.
We don't need to splash out on big set pieces or anything like that. The episode will be self-contained in the Chandler Hotel set that they have, cuts down expense for the big showier episodes.
Right, because that's what Sliders is known for, big showy episodes. Special effects, scarabs and whatnot, so.
Yeah, those awesome scarab effects and dinosaurs.
That's it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Keep up with listener interaction by liking our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatchpodcast and follow the show on Twitter at rewatchpod. You can also visit our webpage at rewatchpodcast.podomatic.com, which has some of our favorite links there, such as dimensionofcontinuity.com, earthprime.com, and the active forum, of course, over at sliders.tv.
And as always, you can write us an email or record a voice message and send it to therewatchpodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please consider giving us a rate and review on iTunes. We do appreciate those 5-star reviews, and we also appreciate you telling everybody how awesome we are and how utterly fantastic our podcast is.
Exactly.
Okay, so thank you for joining me again, Tom.
Yep.
And I will just say, until next time, I told you to stay away from this devil and necromancer.
But I love him. We gotta slide.
The Reatch podcast is not associated with NBC Universal, St. Clair Entertainment, Fox, or Sci-Fi Channel. The use of any and all copyrighted material is only for parody, news analysis, critique, or educational purposes, as provided in United States Code Title 17, aka Fair Use. Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com. Copyright 2015, The Reatch Podcast.